A lone rancher is told to give up her land or lose her daughter, but these men made one fatal mistake. They thought she was just a helpless woman, alone in the middle of nowhere. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The screen door of the old farmhouse slammed shut. "Ma'am, Mr. Thompson sent us," the bigger of the two men said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "He's made you a very generous offer for this land." Maria stood motionless, her face a mask of calm, but her hand, hidden behind the doorframe, was already tightening its grip on the heavy iron skillet she kept for emergencies. She knew this wasn't an offer, it was a final warning. If you believe in fighting for what's yours, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. And tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and write the word justice. Maria Hayes wasn't just a rancher. She was the third generation of her family to work this dry, unforgiving patch of land in rural Texas. Her hands were weathered from fixing fences and herding cattle, and her eyes had seen too many droughts and not enough rain. The Hayes Ranch wasn't large, but it was theirs. A small island of independence surrounded on all three sides by the sprawling cattle empire of Silas Thompson, a land baron who bought up family farms with predatory offers and veiled threats. Maria was the last holdout. Her 9-year-old daughter Marietta was her whole world, the reason she fought so hard to keep the land her grandfather had built from nothing. The day had started like any other. The sun beat down on the dusty yard, and Marietta was playing with a stray dog near the porch steps. Then the dusty pickup truck rolled up to her gate. Maria knew who they were, Thompson's dogs. They didn't waste time with pleasantries. They stepped out of the truck, leaving the doors open. Their names were Cletus and Jeb. Cletus was the big one, Jeb the wiry one with shifty eyes. "The papers are in the truck, Maria," Cletus said, his voice low and gravelly. "Sign them." "Thompson is tired of waiting." Maria's heart pounded in her chest, but her voice was steady. "I told him last week and the week before, this land is not for sale. Now get off my property." Jeb laughed, a short, ugly sound. "That's not how this works." Before Maria could react, he moved with surprising speed. He grabbed Marietta. The girl let out a small, terrified cry before Jeb's hand clamped over her mouth. He dragged her, kicking and struggling back toward the truck. "No!" Maria screamed, lunging forward, but Cletus blocked her path, his body a wall of muscle. "You want to see her again?" Cletus grunted, shoving her back. "Sign the papers. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. Have your signature ready." He then turned and got into the driver's seat. Jeb threw Marietta into the back of the cab and slammed the door. The truck sped away, leaving Maria standing alone in a cloud of dust and despair. "You have 24 hours, Cletus yelled from the window. "The papers, or you'll never see her again." For a moment the world stopped. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic barking of the stray dog. But then something inside her shifted. The fear didn't vanish, but it crystallized into something else. Something hard and sharp. Rage. They thought she was a grieving mother, a helpless victim. They expected her to call the sheriff, a man who was already in Thompson's pocket. They expected her to cry and beg. They were wrong. She walked back into the house, her steps deliberate. She didn't go to the phone. She went to the old gun safe hidden under a floorboard in her bedroom, the one her grandfather had installed decades ago. Silas Thompson had sent 2 wolves to a sheep's pen. He had no idea he'd just cornered a lioness. They wanted her land, and they had her daughter. But what would happen when they discovered Maria had something for them too? The hinges of the old safe groaned in protest. Inside, nestled in worn velvet, lay her grandfather's legacy. Not money, but tools. A Winchester Model 1894 rifle, its wooden stock smooth from decades of use, and a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, brutally simple and effective. Maria ran a hand over the cold steel of the rifle. Her grandfather had taught her to shoot before she could properly ride a horse. "This land gives, but it also takes," he used to say. "You gotta be ready to protect what's yours." She pulled both weapons out, along with 2 boxes of ammunition. Her hands didn't shake. The time for fear had passed. Now was the time for work. She moved with a quiet efficiency that came from a lifetime of solitary labor. First, she checked the rifle, cycling the lever action. The click-clack was a familiar, comforting sound. She loaded it, sliding the cartridges into the side gate one by one. She did the same with the shotgun, the shuck-shuck of the pump, a grim promise. She didn't have a plan yet, not a complete one, but she knew the first step: information. She couldn't fight what she couldn't see. They said noon tomorrow. That gave her the night. Meanwhile, miles away, Cletus pulled the truck into a dilapidated barn on the far edge of Thompson's property. It was a forgotten place, used for storing old, rusted equipment. He shoved Marietta into a dusty storage room. "You stay quiet," he warned, his voice flat. He locked the door with a heavy padlock. Jeb was already on his phone. "Boss? Yeah, it's us. We got the girl." He listened for a moment. No, she didn't sign yet. Said she needed time to think. He laughed. "Yeah, she'll think about it. We told her noon tomorrow." Cletus snatched the phone. "It's Cletus, Mr. Thompson. The situation is handled. She's a stubborn one, but she'll break. No woman is gonna lose her kid over some dirt." He listened, his face hardening slightly. "Yes, sir. Noon. We'll have the deed for you by lunch." He hung up and glared at Jeb. "The boss ain't happy about the delay. He wants this clean." "It'll be clean," Jeb sneered, pulling a flask from his jacket. "She signs, we give the kid back. Maybe a little roughed up to teach her a lesson." "The boss said no rough stuff," Cletus growled. "We are not here to make things complicated. We get the paper, that's it." Inside the dark room, Marietta sat on a pile of old burlap sacks. She wasn't crying. She was listening. She heard every word. She was her mother's daughter, and she knew fear was a luxury. As darkness fell over the plains, Maria was on the move. Dressed in dark clothing, she didn't take her truck. She walked, cutting across her own pasture and through a dry creek bed that bordered Thompson's land. She knew this terrain like the back of her hand, every rock, every gully. It was a 2-mile trek to the old barn. She'd seen Thompson's men use it before to store things they didn't want seen. She approached from downwind, moving from shadow to shadow. A single light burned inside the barn. Through a grimy window she saw them. Cletus was cleaning a pistol at a small table. Jeb was drinking from his flask, pacing. She couldn't see Marietta, but she knew her daughter was there. Maria stayed for over an hour, watching, memorizing their movements. Jeb was restless and sloppy. Cletus was methodical, but overconfident. They left the generator running for the single light bulb, its low hum covering any small sounds she might make. They thought they were isolated. They didn't even bother to post a watch. This was their second mistake. Her heart ached to storm the barn right then, but she knew it would be suicide. 2 men, both armed. She was a good shot, but she wasn't a soldier. And Marietta was inside. No, a direct assault was foolish. Her grandfather hadn't just taught her how to shoot. He'd taught her how to hunt, and the first rule of hunting was to prepare the ground. She slipped away as silently as she arrived. The walk back to her ranch was different. The cold fury was now sharpened into a fine point. She had the location. She knew her enemy's habits. Now she would turn her home, the very land they wanted to steal, into a weapon. When she reached her porch, she didn't go inside to rest. She went to her workshop. She grabbed spools of barbed wire, heavy chains, and a box of long, thick nails. They were coming at noon. They expected a terrified woman with a signed paper. They were going to walk into a trap. The night was long, but Maria didn't feel the exhaustion. Adrenaline was a powerful fuel. She worked under the dim light of a single lantern in her workshop, the sounds of her labor swallowed by the vast, empty plains. She didn't have explosives or fancy equipment, but she had something better, an intimate knowledge of her land and the tools to work it. First, the driveway. It was the only way in and out by vehicle. She dug a shallow trench across it, about 50 yards from the house. Inside, she placed a wide plank of wood, hammered through with dozens of 6-inch nails, points facing up. She carefully covered it with a thin layer of dirt and dust, making it invisible. Anyone driving over it at speed would have their tires shredded instantly. Next, she took the heavy chain from her tractor and ran it between the 2 large oak trees that flanked the driveway just past her makeshift tire trap. She wrapped it tight and padlocked it about 2 feet off the ground. It was nearly invisible in the shadows of the trees. A speeding truck would not just get flat tires, its front axle would be stopped dead. She then turned her attention to the house and the barn. She dragged old troughs and rusted farm equipment into the open yard, creating a chaotic field of cover for her and obstacles for them. She boarded up most of the downstairs windows of her house, leaving only small slits to see through. Her primary position would be the hayloft of her barn. It offered a clear, elevated view of the entire driveway and the front of the house. She hauled up a jug of water, the loaded Winchester, the shotgun, and extra boxes of shells. She created a nest for herself behind some hay bales, a sniper's perch built from the stuff of her daily life. By the time the first rays of sun crested the horizon, Maria's ranch was no longer a home. It was a kill box. She sat in the hayloft, rifle across her lap, and waited. Back at the dilapidated barn, Cletus woke Jeb by kicking his boot. "Get up, it's almost time." Jeb groaned, his head pounding from the cheap whiskey. They gave Marietta a stale piece of bread and a bottle of water. The girl took it without a word, her eyes watching them, missing nothing. "She's a quiet one," Jeb mumbled, rubbing his face. "Good," Cletus said. "Let's get this over with. The boss is expecting a call." They bundled Marietta back into the truck. They were relaxed, joking about what they'd do with the bonus Thompson promised them. The thought that Maria might fight back never crossed their minds. They saw her as a problem that could be solved with a simple signature. They were delivering a pen, not walking into a war. At 11:55 a.m., Maria heard the distant rumble of their pickup truck. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silence. She took a slow, deep breath, pressing her cheek against the cool wood of the rifle stock. She watched through the scope as the truck came down the long dirt road. It was moving fast, too fast. They hit the nail trap exactly as she'd planned. There was a loud bang as the front right tire exploded. The truck swerved violently, the sound of shredding rubber cutting through the air. Cletus fought the wheel, but the vehicle was out of control. It careened forward another 20 yards before smashing head-on into the heavy chain Maria had strung between the trees. The impact was brutal. The front of the truck crumpled, the engine died with a final metallic scream, and both men were thrown hard against the dashboard. For a moment, there was only the sound of hissing steam and the tinkling of broken glass. Then, the driver's side door was kicked open. Cletus stumbled out, clutching his head, a dark trickle of blood running down his temple. Jeb crawled out the passenger side, groaning. "What the hell was that?" Jeb yelled, dazed. Cletus wasn't looking at the chain. He was scanning the property, the quiet house, the silent barn. "It's a trap," he growled, pulling his pistol. "She set us up." That's when Maria made her presence known. A single shot rang out from the hayloft. It wasn't aimed at them. The bullet slammed into the truck's engine block, sending a shower of sparks into the air. The message was clear. "I see you. I can hit you." Both men flattened themselves against the side of the truck, using it for cover. "Maria!" Cletus bellowed, his voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You crazy woman! What do you think you're doing?" The reply came from the barn, her voice amplified by the open space, cold and steady. "This is my property. You are no longer welcome. Leave the girl and walk away." Jeb laughed, a high, nervous sound. "Or what? You'll shoot us?" Cletus silenced him with a look. He grabbed the rear door handle and yanked it open, pulling a terrified Marietta out of the cab. He shoved her in front of him, pressing the barrel of his pistol to her small head. "You want to play hardball?" he screamed toward the barn. "You just got your daughter killed. Drop the rifle now, or I swear I'll do it." Silence hung in the air, thick and heavy under the Texas sun. In the hayloft, Maria's blood ran cold. The sight of the gun pressed against her daughter's temple was a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. Her plan, so carefully constructed, was shattering. Cletus had her checkmated. He had the one piece on the board she couldn't afford to lose. Her finger was on the trigger of the Winchester, the crosshairs steady, but the shot was impossible. The slightest miscalculation, and she would be the one to end her daughter's life. "All right," Maria's voice called out, strained but clear. She deliberately made it sound shakier than she felt. "Okay, don't hurt her, I'm coming out." Cletus's lips curled into a triumphant smirk. "That's more like it. Put the rifle down where I can see it, then the shotgun. Then you come out with your hands up. Slow and easy." Jeb, still hiding behind the truck, let out a relieved sigh. "See, told you she'd fold." Maria was about to comply, to sacrifice the land for her child, when a new sound cut through the tension. A distant siren. It grew steadily louder. All three of them froze. For Cletus and Jeb, it meant complications. For Maria, it was a flicker of hope that died almost as soon as it was born. She knew that siren. It belonged to Sheriff Brody, a man who hadn't paid for a meal in Thompson's favorite steakhouse in over a decade. He wasn't coming to help her. A few minutes later, the county sheriff's patrol car came speeding down the driveway. It swerved to a halt 20 feet behind the wrecked pickup. Sheriff Brody, a large man with a gut that strained the buttons of his uniform, got out. He didn't draw his weapon. He just pushed his sunglasses up his forehead and surveyed the scene. "Maria, what in God's name is going on here?" Brody asked, his tone one of weary disappointment, as if he were scolding a child. "She went crazy, Sheriff," Cletus shouted, not moving the gun from Marietta's head. "We came to deliver some papers from Mr. Thompson, and she ambushed us, tried to kill us." "He's lying," Maria yelled from the barn. "They took my daughter. They're trying to steal my land." Brody sighed and looked at Cletus. "Is the girl hurt?" "Not yet," Cletus said, his grip on Marietta tightening. "But this situation is getting out of hand. We need you to get her out of that barn." The sheriff turned his attention back to the hayloft. "Maria, you listen to me. You've made a terrible mistake. You've assaulted these men. You put down your weapons and come out now, and I'll see if I can't talk to the judge. Get you some leniency." The last bit of hope in Maria's heart turned to ash. He wasn't a lawman. He was Thompson's cleaner. This wasn't a rescue. It was reinforcement. They all thought the negotiation was between the adults. They had forgotten about Marietta. The little girl, held tight in Cletus's arm, had been watching Jeb. He was the weak one. His hands were shaking, and he kept glancing nervously between the sheriff and the barn. While Cletus was focused on Brody, Marietta saw her chance. With all the force her small body could muster, she stomped down hard on Cletus's instep with the heel of her boot. Cletus roared in pain and surprise, his grip instinctively loosening for a split second. It was all Marietta needed. She bit down hard on the fleshy part of his arm, holding her. "Ah, you little brat!" he yelled, shoving her away from him. That was the opening, the one-in-a-million chance Maria had been praying for. Marietta was clear. Maria didn't hesitate. She didn't aim for Cletus, who was already recovering. She aimed for the weakest link. The Winchester cracked and the bullet tore through the air, hitting Jeb in the shoulder. He screamed and collapsed, dropping his pistol in the dust. Chaos erupted. Marietta scrambled away from Cletus, diving behind a rusted water trough. Sheriff Brody finally drew his weapon, shouting commands that no one was listening to. Cletus, forgetting about the girl for a moment, fired 2 wild shots from his pistol toward the barn, the bullets thudding into the old wood. "Cover me!" Cletus screamed at the sheriff as he began to move, using the wrecked truck as a shield, trying to get a better angle on the hayloft. Maria worked the lever action, ejecting the spent casing. Click-clack. A fresh round was now in the chamber. She had neutralized one threat and freed her daughter. But now she was in a firefight with 2 armed men, one of them a sheriff. The game had changed again. They were no longer trying to scare her. Now, They were trying to kill her. Bullets splintered the wood around Maria's head. Cletus was providing covering fire, while Sheriff Brody, using his patrol car for cover, tried to get a clear line of sight. Jeb was moaning on the ground, out of the fight, but not out of the way. Maria fired back, not to hit, but to keep their heads down. The rifle was powerful, but she only had a few rounds left in the magazine before she'd have to reload. Her position in the hayloft, once an advantage, had become a cage. They knew exactly where she was. "Marietta, stay down," she yelled, her voice raw. "I'm okay, Mama." The small voice came back, steady and brave from behind the trough. Maria knew she couldn't stay put. They would eventually surround the barn, or worse, try to set it on fire. She needed to change the battlefield. Her eyes scanned the yard she had so carefully prepared. The house, the boarded-up windows and thick walls offered better protection, but crossing the 30 yards of open ground between the barn and the house was a death sentence. Then she saw it. Next to the workshop, half hidden behind a stack of old tires, was a large, rusty propane tank used for the forge. It was old and probably half full. An idea, desperate and dangerous, sparked in her mind. It was a terrible risk. But staying put was a guarantee of failure. She set the Winchester down. She grabbed the shotgun. It was a close-quarters weapon, useless at this range, but she wasn't planning on shooting them with it. Not yet. She took a deep breath, picked the Winchester back up, and peeked through a crack in the boards. Cletus and Brody were still focused on her position in the hayloft. "Marietta!" she shouted. "When I tell you, you run to the back door of the house. Don't stop for anything. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mama." "Get ready," Maria yelled. She rested the rifle on a hay bale, took careful aim at the brass valve on top of the propane tank, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck true. It didn't cause an explosion, but it did exactly what she wanted. A loud hiss filled the air as flammable gas began to pour out, visible as a shimmering haze in the hot sun. "What's that noise?" Brody yelled, confused. Cletus knew. His eyes widened in horror. "Get back, it's the gas!" But it was too late. Maria aimed again, this time at the steel body of the tank itself. She fired. The bullet didn't need to pierce it. It just needed to create a spark. The rifle round screamed off the metal, and the world erupted in a ball of fire and thunder. The force of the explosion threw Cletus and Sheriff Brody to the ground. The wrecked pickup truck was peppered with shrapnel, its remaining windows shattering. A wave of heat washed over the yard. "Now, Marietta, run!" Maria screamed into the deafening roar. She didn't wait to see if her daughter was moving. She scrambled down the loft ladder, shotgun in hand. Through the thick black smoke now filling the yard, she saw Marietta's small form sprinting for the house. Maria burst out of the barn's side door and ran, her lungs burning. The smoke was her cover. She reached the back porch just as Marietta fumbled the door open. They tumbled inside, and Maria slammed the heavy wooden door shut, bolting it. They were safe. For now. Peeking through one of the slits she'd prepared, she saw the aftermath. The workshop wall was scorched black. Jeb was now screaming, his pant leg on fire. Cletus was dazed, trying to put out the flames on Jeb's leg. Sheriff Brody was crawling back toward his car, his face pale with shock and fear. He reached into his car and grabbed the radio. "This is Brody. I need backup. Shots fired at the old Hayes Ranch. Officer down." Cletus staggered to his feet, his ears ringing. He ignored the whimpering Jeb and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number from memory. "Boss," he said, his voice raspy, "we have a problem, a big one." He listened, his expression growing darker. "No, sir. She's not cooperating." "Brody's here?" "Yes, she shot Jeb." "I don't know. She blew up a propane tank." He fell silent, listening to the voice on the other end. "Yes, sir," he finally said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I understand. No witnesses." He hung up the phone and looked at Sheriff Brody, who was staring at him, horrified. "What did he say?" Brody asked. Cletus picked up Jeb's fallen pistol from the dust. "He said to clean up our mess, and the county's finest is going to help." Inside the farmhouse, the air was thick with the smell of cordite and smoke. Maria pushed Marietta behind her hand on her daughter's shoulder, a silent gesture of comfort and command. For a few precious seconds, they were safe. Marietta wasn't crying. Her eyes were wide, watching her mother with a mixture of fear and awe. "You stay in the kitchen, under the table," Maria said, her voice low and urgent. "No matter what you hear, you do not come out. You understand me?" Marietta nodded, her small face grim. "They have the sheriff, Mama." "I know," Maria said. "The sheriff works for Mr. Thompson." It was a harsh truth, but there was no time for anything less. She moved to the front window, peering through the small slit she had left in the boards. Her heart sank. The Winchester was still propped against the hay bales in the loft, 100 feet away. An impossible distance. All she had now was the shotgun, a devastating weapon up close, but useless for keeping them at bay. She had 5 shells in the gun and a handful more in her pocket. It wasn't enough. Outside, Sheriff Brody was on his feet, his revolver looking like a toy in his trembling hand. "Cletus, what are you talking about? Clean up. I called for backup. Deputies are on their way." Cletus gave him a look of pure pity. "You think Thompson doesn't have the dispatcher in his pocket too? Who do you think is coming, Brody? The state police? No. You called for more of Thompson's men, that's all. Your call just told the boss we needed heavier equipment." He gestured with the pistol toward Jeb, who was now trying to crawl away, leaving a bloody trail in the dirt. "Help me. Cletus, please," Jeb moaned, clutching his shattered shoulder. "It hurts so bad." "We gotta get him to a doctor," Brody said, his voice pleading. He was a man watching his whole world unravel, realizing the small compromises he'd made over the years had led him to this. Cletus walked over to Jeb and stood over him. He looked down, his face unreadable. "The boss is right," he said almost to himself. "This has gotten messy." He then raised the pistol he'd taken from Jeb. "Cletus, no!" Brody shouted, taking a step forward. Cletus didn't even look at him. He fired once. The shot was flat and ugly in the sudden silence. Jeb's body went limp. A thin curl of smoke rose from the pistol's barrel. Brody froze, his face ashen. He stared at Jeb's body, then at Cletus. The man he thought was just a thug had just executed his partner in broad daylight. "No witnesses, Sheriff," Cletus said, his voice like gravel. "That includes loose ends. Now, are you with Mr. Thompson, or are you a loose end too?" He leveled the pistol at Brody's chest. The sheriff swallowed hard, sweat pouring down his face. He looked from the gun in Cletus's hand to the fortified farmhouse. He had made his choice years ago. He just hadn't known the final price. Slowly, miserably, he holstered his own weapon. "I'm with Thompson," he muttered, the words tasting like poison. "Good," Cletus said, the gun not wavering. "Then get the rifle out of your trunk. We're going to end this before those deputies get here to help us. We're going in the back. You're going to draw her fire from the front." From her window, Maria had seen it all. She saw Cletus raise the gun. She saw him fire. She saw the sheriff, the symbol of the law in her county, surrender his will and become just another one of Thompson's Capangas. The last faint hope that this could end in anything but blood evaporated. There would be no negotiation, no surrender. They were coming to kill her and her daughter and burn the house down around them, leaving a story of a distraught woman who went on a rampage. She backed away from the window, her mind racing. The house was her fortress, but it was also her tomb if she stayed put. They knew she was inside. They would come from 2 sides. The shotgun was a powerful argument, but against a rifle and a pistol, she was outmatched in the open. She needed to even the odds. She needed them to come inside. She needed them to come close. She looked around the familiar room, the worn armchair, the family photos on the mantel, the braided rug her grandmother had made. This was her home, her land. They thought they could take it. They had underestimated the woman. Now they were about to underestimate the house itself. She grabbed a can of kerosene from beside the fireplace and a box of matches. If they wanted her home, she would make sure they went to hell with it. Undefined. There was no time for panic. The cold clarity that had settled over Maria when she first opened the gun safe was now absolute. She looked at the can of kerosene, then at the shotgun in her other hand. These were just tools, like a shovel or a hammer, and she knew how to use her tools. "Marietta," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Come with me." She led her daughter not to the kitchen, but to a small, sturdy door in the pantry. It led to the root cellar. It was cool and dark, smelling of earth and stored potatoes. It was the safest place in the house. "You hide down here. There are blankets in the old chest. Get inside it and pull the lid down. Do not open it for anyone but me. You will hear loud noises. You will smell smoke, but you will be safe." Marietta looked up, her 9-year-old face a mask of trust. "Will you be safe, Mama?" Maria knelt and looked her daughter in the eye. "I will be. Now go. Be brave." Marietta hugged her tightly, then disappeared down the wooden steps. Maria closed the heavy cellar door and slid a thick iron bolt across it. One part of her world was now secure. She moved quickly. She unscrewed the cap from the kerosene can. The pungent smell filled the small house. She started in the central hallway that connected the front living room to the back kitchen. She poured a wide, glistening path of fuel over the old wooden floorboards, splashing it liberally up the walls. This hallway was a natural choke point. Anyone entering from the back door to get to the front or vice versa had to pass through it. She saved a small amount of the fuel, creating a thin, deliberate trail that led from the main pool to the base of the heavy cast-iron wood stove that dominated one wall of the living room. She opened the stove's small door, stuffed a dry rag inside, and doused it with the last of the kerosene. Her trap was set. Now for the bait. She ran silently up the creaking stairs to the second floor, shotgun in hand. She positioned herself at a side window that gave her a view of Brody's patrol car, but kept her out of a direct line of sight from the back of the house where Cletus would be approaching. She waited, her breathing slow and even. Outside, the assault began. "Start shooting," Cletus ordered Brody, shoving him forward. "Make her think we're both coming from the front." Brody, his face slick with sweat, reluctantly raised his rifle. He fired a shot that went wide, splintering the porch railing. "Maria, this is the sheriff. It's over. Come out with your hands up," he shouted, his voice cracking. Another shot from Brody's rifle punched through a boarded-up window downstairs. This was the cue. Maria raised her shotgun and fired one of her precious shells out the upstairs window, aiming high into the sky. The blast was deafening. It was a calculated waste of ammunition. It told them two things. She was upstairs, and she was armed with a short-range weapon. It was exactly what they needed to hear. "She's upstairs! In the front!" Cletus yelled, a grin spreading across his face. "She's cornered! Keep her busy!" He broke from cover and sprinted toward the back of the house, pistol drawn. Maria heard his heavy boots on the back porch. She heard the splintering crash as he kicked in the kitchen door. She didn't stay upstairs. The moment he was committed, she was moving, her bare feet making no sound on the old wooden floors as she descended the stairs, melting into the deep shadows of the living room near the wood stove. Cletus moved through the kitchen, kicking aside a chair. "Nowhere left to run, Maria," he called out, his voice echoing in the house. He saw the light from the front of the house, where Brody was still sporadically firing. He stepped confidently into the hallway, heading for the stairs. He was a wolf moving in for the kill, his eyes focused upward, expecting his prey to be cowering in a bedroom. He didn't look down. He didn't notice the slickness under his boots or the sharp chemical smell that was growing stronger. From the shadows, Maria raised the shotgun. She didn't aim at Cletus. Her target was smaller, more important. She aimed at the open door of the wood stove. She pulled the trigger. The buckshot slammed into the cast iron. The impact created a shower of brilliant orange sparks that ignited the kerosene-soaked rag inside. A small flame blossomed, instantly racing along the thin trail of fuel she had laid. Cletus heard the shotgun blast and instinctively spun around, but it was too late. The flame hit the main pool of kerosene in the hallway, and the world became a wall of fire. A consuming roar filled the house as the entire corridor erupted. Cletus screamed. a horrifying sound that was half rage, half agony, as the flames shot up the walls and across the ceiling, engulfing him completely. Outside, Sheriff Brody watched the downstairs windows glow a sudden, violent orange and knew the woman in the house was not the prey. She was the trapper, and he was the last one caught on her land. Sheriff Brody stood frozen in the yard, the rifle feeling heavy and useless in his hands. Thick, oily smoke billowed from the front windows of the farmhouse. Cletus's screams had been cut short, replaced by the hungry roar of the fire. Brody was alone. The plan, Thompson's plan, Cletus's plan, had literally gone up in flames. He was a sheriff standing over two dead bodies on a property that was rapidly becoming a crime scene he couldn't control or explain away. The backup he had called for, Thompson's men, would be here soon. But what would they find? A bloodbath, a burned-out house, and him, the sole survivor. He knew instantly how Thompson would spin this. A tragic story about a heroic sheriff who walked into a mad woman's rampage. He'd be the star witness, the one to sell the lie. Panic clawed at his throat. He looked at the burning house, then back down the long driveway. He could run, just get in his car and drive, leave this whole mess behind. But where would he go? Thompson's reach was long. Running was a death sentence, just a slower one. His only way out was through. He had to finish the job. He had to eliminate the witness. He had to kill Maria Hayes. He dropped the rifle he'd been using. It was too clumsy for what he had to do next. He drew his service revolver, a .357 Magnum, 6 shots, more than enough. He started moving, not toward the front door, which was now a gaping maw of fire, but around the side of the house, toward the pantry and the root cellar. He knew the layout of these old farmhouses. If there was a place to hide from a fire, that was it. Inside, Maria was already choking on the smoke. The heat was immense. She had retreated from the living room into the pantry, pressing a damp cloth over her mouth and nose. The fire was spreading faster than she'd anticipated, the old dry wood of the house acting like kindling. She could hear the ceiling joists groaning above her. She had won, but she had destroyed her home in the process. The victory felt hollow, tasting of ash. But she was alive, and Marietta was safe. That was all that mattered. She listened intently. The roar of the fire was deafening, but through it, she heard something else. The crunch of boots on the gravel outside the pantry window. Brody. He wasn't running. He was hunting. She slid the bolt on the cellar door open as quietly as she could, her heart pounding. She had 3 shotgun shells left. The pantry door burst open, and Brody filled the doorway, his face a mask of grim determination, his gun leading the way. "It's over, Maria," he panted, his eyes wild. "Don't make this harder." Maria didn't answer. She fired the shotgun from her hip. The blast was concussive in the small space. The buckshot tore through the wooden shelves beside Brody's head, showering him with splinters and shattered jars of preserves. He flinched back, firing his own weapon blindly into the pantry. The bullet went wide, burying itself in the wall. Maria used the moment of his disorientation to slip through the cellar door and down the first few steps, pulling the heavy door almost shut behind her. It was pitch black in the cellar. She knew this space intimately. He didn't. This was her ground now. Brody, his ears ringing, cautiously entered the pantry. He saw the cellar door, slightly ajar. "Hiding in a hole?" he sneered, trying to sound braver than he felt. "You'll just die down there." He kicked the door open and pointed his revolver into the darkness below. He couldn't see anything. "Come on out, Maria. Let's just end this." Silence. He took a hesitant step onto the top stair, peering down. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth. He took another step. The old wooden stairs creaked under his weight. He was a big man, moving from a world of bright, violent fire into one of cold, absolute darkness. His eyes struggled to adjust. From the deepest corner of the cellar, behind a stack of old wooden crates, Maria racked the shotgun. The shuck-shuck sound was unnaturally loud in the enclosed space. It was a sound that promised violence. Brody froze on the stairs. He fired a shot into the darkness, the muzzle flash momentarily illuminating a maze of shelves and boxes. The bullet ricocheted off the stone wall with a high-pitched whine. He had 5 shots left. "You can't hide forever," he yelled, his voice echoing off the stone walls. A voice came back at him, not from the corner where the sound had come from, but from his left. "I'm not hiding," Maria's voice said, calm and cold. "I'm waiting." He spun, firing twice more in the direction of her voice. The gunshots were deafening, the flashes blinding him again. He had stumbled into her final trap. He was in a dark room, against an opponent who could see perfectly. And he had just told her exactly where he was. The muzzle flashes from Brody's revolver had seared bright spots into his vision, leaving him more blind than before. He blinked furiously, trying to clear the dancing phantoms from his eyes. He had 3 shots left. He was halfway down a rickety staircase in a pitch-black cellar with an armed woman who knew every inch of the terrain. The acrid smell of smoke from the burning house above was starting to seep through the floorboards, a grim reminder that time was running out for both of them. "You're a fool, Maria," he yelled, his voice tight with fear. "Thompson's other men are on their way. Even if you get me, you can't win." He was talking to keep her located, to force her to respond. But the only answer was the drip, drip, drip of water from a leaky pipe somewhere in the darkness. He took another shaky step down, his boot slipping on something slick. He reached out, his hand brushing against a rough stone wall to steady himself. He was a cornered animal, lashing out in the dark. Maria remained perfectly still. She had moved silently after speaking, circling around a set of tall shelves laden with dusty canning jars. Her bare feet made no sound on the packed earth floor. The darkness was her ally. She had spent countless hours down here as a child, playing hide-and-seek, learning its secrets. She knew that the floor was uneven, that a support beam ran low across the middle of the room, and that the old wooden chest where her daughter was hiding was made of solid oak. Brody took his last step off the stairs and onto the cellar floor. He stood still, straining to hear anything over his own ragged breathing and the crackle of the fire above. He didn't dare move. He knew she was close. He could almost feel her presence in the oppressive dark. "All right, Maria," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You win. I'll walk out of here. I'll tell them you're dead. I'll tell Thompson whatever he wants to hear. Just let me go." It was a weak ploy, and they both knew it. There was no walking away from this. From the far corner of the cellar, a single glass jar was pushed from a shelf. It fell to the stone floor and shattered. The sound was an explosion in the silence. Brody reacted instantly, spinning and firing his last 3 shots in a tight, panicked cluster toward the noise. Bang! 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 The muzzle flashes illuminated the empty corner for a fraction of a second, revealing nothing but broken glass. He was empty. The click of his hammer on a spent cartridge was the loudest sound he had ever heard. He had fallen for the oldest trick in the book. "You took an oath, Sheriff," Maria's voice said, this time from directly behind him. "To protect and to serve." Brody's blood ran cold. He tried to turn, to use his empty revolver as a club, but he was too slow. Maria stepped out of the shadow of the staircase he had just descended. She wasn't holding the shotgun to fire. She held it like a battering ram. She swung the heavy steel and wood weapon in a tight arc, putting all of her weight and all of her rage behind it. The stock of the shotgun slammed into the side of Brody's head with a sickening crunch. He dropped without a sound, his large body collapsing in a heap on the cellar floor. He was unconscious but alive. Killing him would have been easy, but that wasn't justice. Justice was letting him face what he had done. Above them, a heavy beam groaned and then snapped, and a section of the kitchen floor collapsed into the cellar in a shower of embers and flaming debris. The fire was coming. Maria dragged the heavy sheriff by his collar, away from the spreading flames. She moved to the old wooden chest. "Marietta," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "It's me. It's over." The lid creaked open. Marietta's small, soot-stained face peered out, her eyes wide. She looked at the unconscious sheriff, at the fire now creeping into their hiding place, and then at her mother. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she simply reached out her hand. "Let's go home, Mama," she said. "Our home is gone," Maria said, her heart aching. "We'll find a new one." She pulled her daughter from the chest. There was one last way out. A small grated window at the back of the cellar at ground level used for ventilation. It was a tight squeeze, but it was their only chance. The smoke in the cellar was a physical presence, hot and suffocating. Maria used the butt of the empty shotgun to smash at the rusted iron grate of the ventilation window. The metal groaned but held. Above, the fire roared like a freight train. There was no time. She handed the shotgun to Marietta. "Stay back," she ordered, and then she kicked. Her boot slammed against the grate. Once, twice. On the third kick, a lifetime of ranch work behind it, the rusted hinges tore free from the stone, and the grate fell into the dirt outside. Cool, clean air rushed in. "You first," Maria said, lifting her daughter easily. "Go." Marietta scrambled through the narrow opening, tumbling onto the cool grass at the back of the house. Maria pushed the shotgun through after her, and then wriggled her way out, scraping her back and shoulders on the rough stone. They were out. They stood for a single, breathtaking moment, watching the home her grandfather had built burn against the noon sky. The roof was starting to sag. Every window was a flickering orange eye. Everything they owned was turning to ash, but they were alive. Maria's eyes didn't linger on the flames. They darted across the yard, cataloging threats and opportunities. Jeb's body lay near the scorched earth where the propane tank had been. The smoldering remains of Cletus were inside the inferno, and Sheriff Brody was unconscious in the cellar, which would soon become his tomb. "No," Maria whispered to herself. "That was too easy. A corrupt sheriff dying in a fire could be explained away. He could even be made a hero. She needed him. She needed the story he would be forced to tell. "Stay here," she told Marietta, who was now holding the shotgun like a seasoned guard. Maria ran back to the cellar opening. The heat was blistering. She took a deep breath, held it, and dropped back into the smoky darkness. She found Brody, grabbed the front of his uniform, and began to drag. He was a dead weight, and the smoke was stealing the strength from her limbs. Her lungs screamed for air. She pulled him, inch by agonizing inch, toward the window. With a final, desperate heave, she managed to get his head and shoulders through the opening. She scrambled out after him and pulled the rest of his limp body free, just as the main floor of the house collapsed into the cellar with a deafening crash, sending a geyser of sparks and flames shooting up from the opening. They were out in the open with a burning house, 2 dead men, and an unconscious sheriff. And in the distance, she could hear it. The sound of more trucks coming fast. Thompson's backup. "The car," Maria said, her mind working with icy speed. She and Marietta half-dragged, half-carried Brody's dead weight to his patrol car. The keys were still in the ignition. Marietta, seeing what her mother intended, opened the back door. They shoved the sheriff inside. Maria went to the trunk. It was unlocked. Inside was a standard-issue police rifle and a box of ammunition, and a set of handcuffs. She grabbed them all. She slammed the trunk shut, ran to the back door, and cuffed Brody's hands tightly behind his back. He was starting to groan, stirring back to consciousness. "Mama, they're coming," Marietta said, pointing down the long driveway. 2 large black pickup trucks were visible now, eating up the distance. Maria slid into the driver's seat of the patrol car. She didn't turn back toward the main road. That would be suicide. Instead, she looked to the west, where a narrow, overgrown track led into the thick woods that bordered her property. It was an old logging trail her grandfather used to use, barely passable, but she knew it would eventually connect to a back road miles away. It was a path Thompson and his men wouldn't even know existed. She started the car, the engine rumbling to life. She slammed it into gear and pressed the accelerator, not with the panic of a victim fleeing, but with the cold resolve of a hunter setting out on the last leg of a long chase. She drove the car off the driveway, bumping over the rough pasture and onto the hidden trail just as the first of Thompson's trucks screeched to a halt in the yard. They had lost everything, their home, their possessions, their peace. But they had each other, and they had a witness cuffed in the back seat. And Maria had one last shell in her shotgun. Silas Thompson was expecting a phone call from his sheriff confirming the job was done. Instead, he was about to get a visit. The logging trail was rough, but the patrol car was built for it, its suspension groaning as Maria expertly navigated the ruts and fallen branches. In the back seat, Sheriff Brody was awake now, groaning, the reality of his situation sinking in. The throbbing in his head was nothing compared to the cold dread in his stomach. "You're making a mistake," he mumbled, his words slurred. "He'll find you. You can't run from him." Maria didn't look back. Her eyes were fixed on the path ahead. Who said anything about running? An hour later, they weren't on a dirt track anymore. They were on smooth asphalt, rolling past manicured lawns and a white fence that stretched for miles. They passed under an ornate iron archway that read Thompson Cattle Company. In the distance, a massive, pristine white mansion stood on a hill, looking down on the surrounding land like a king on his throne. Maria didn't slow down. She drove the patrol car straight up the long, winding driveway and parked it directly in front of the wide porch steps, tearing up a patch of perfectly green lawn in the process. The front door of the mansion opened. Silas Thompson stood there, a glass of iced tea in his hand. He was a tall, lean man in his 60s, dressed in expensive Western wear. He saw the sheriff's car and a smile touched his lips, assuming it was Brody coming to report a job well done. The smile vanished when Maria Hayes stepped out of the driver's seat, her daughter getting out the other side, the shotgun held at her side like an extension of her arm. "What is the meaning of this?" Thompson demanded, his voice accustomed to instant obedience. "Where is Brody?" "He's right here," Maria said. She opened the back door and pulled the cuffed, bleeding sheriff out onto the manicured lawn. Brody stumbled and fell to his knees. Thompson's face went pale. He saw the blood. He saw the handcuffs. He saw the cold, unwavering fury in Maria's eyes. "What have you done?" "What you paid him to do," Maria answered, her voice carrying across the perfect lawn. "He came to my home to help your men kidnap my daughter and kill me. They failed." Thompson laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. "That's a wild accusation. It's your word against a respected officer of the law." "Is it?" Maria asked. And then Thompson heard it. Faint at first, then growing steadily louder. Sirens. Not the familiar yelp of the local county cars. This was a chorus of them, wailing and insistent, coming from the main highway. "My men will be here any second," Thompson blustered, but his eyes darted nervously toward the sound. "Not your men," Maria said calmly. "Mine." Ooh. The realization dawned on Thompson's face, a slow-motion collapse of his arrogance. Maria had used the sheriff's radio, not the local channel connected to the dispatcher he owned. She had used the state emergency frequency. The call hadn't gone to his cronies. It had gone to the state police barracks 50 miles away, a barracks full of men who had no love for a county sheriff they all suspected was dirty. The first of the state police cruisers, lights flashing, screeched to a halt at the bottom of the driveway, blocking the entrance. Then another and another. Thompson looked from the approaching troopers to the pathetic, kneeling form of Sheriff Brody. He looked at Maria, standing tall and unbowed on his perfect lawn, a shotgun in her hand and justice arriving at her back. In that moment, he knew it was over. His money couldn't stop this. His influence ended where those flashing blue and red lights began. 6 months later, the Hayes Ranch looked different. The burned-out shell of the house was gone, cleared away by volunteers from neighboring towns who had heard the story. In its place was the fresh foundation of a new, smaller home. Thompson's empire had been frozen by federal investigators, and he was facing a mountain of charges, from racketeering to conspiracy to commit murder. Brody, in exchange for his testimony, was looking at 10 years in a federal prison. Maria and Marietta stood on their porch, watching the sunset paint the Texas sky. The land was quiet. It was scarred, but it was theirs. The fire had taken her house, but it hadn't taken her home. Her home was the land, passed down through generations, and for the first time in a long time, it was truly, finally safe. Maria Hayes proved that one person, pushed to the edge, can move mountains, or in her case, topple an empire built on greed and fear. She didn't have an army or powerful friends. She had her wits, a deep knowledge of her own territory, and a love for her daughter that was stronger than any fence Silas Thompson could build. They tried to take everything from her, underestimating the quiet strength of a woman who worked the land. Their fatal error was arrogance. They looked at a woman alone and saw weakness. They looked at a small ranch and saw an easy target. They never considered that the calloused hands that mend fences could also steady a rifle, or that a mother's instinct to protect her child is the most dangerous force on earth. They saw a victim, an obstacle to be removed. What they found was a force of nature, a mother whose fury could burn brighter than any fire they could set. This story is a powerful reminder that the fight for justice is never truly over, and that courage can be found in the most unexpected places. Maria lost her home, a place filled with generations of memories, but in its ashes, she planted the seeds of a new beginning, not just for her and Marietta, but for the entire community that had lived under Thompson's shadow for far too long. In the end, she didn't just save her family. She liberated an entire county from the grip of a tyrant who thought he was above the law. She showed everyone that no matter how powerful someone seems, they are never invincible when faced with someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. What Maria did was extraordinary, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. She wasn't a trained soldier or a law enforcement officer. She was a rancher. She turned her pain into a plan and her fear into fuel. She used the very tools of her simple life, barbed wire, chains, a hunting rifle and kerosene for a lantern, to dismantle a complex web of corruption. She didn't fight them on their terms. She made them fight on hers. The nail trap, the chain across the driveway, the fire in the hallway, these weren't the weapons of a professional, but the ingenious traps of someone who knew every inch of her home ground. It's a story that proves that true power isn't about how much land you own or how many people you can buy. It's about the strength of your convictions and the lengths you will go to protect what you love. Thank you for joining us on this incredible and intense journey. Maria's story is a powerful one, and we hope it resonated with you as much as it did with us. If you believe in the power of one person to make a difference and stand up against injustice, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more emotional and inspiring stories just like this one. Your support is what allows us to continue bringing these narratives to light. We have a dedicated community of viewers who watch our stories from start to finish. To show you're one of them and to honor Maria's unbreakable spirit, let us know you made it all the way through by commenting, "I watched until the end." Your engagement helps us identify our most loyal viewers and ensures that more people will discover stories like Maria's. And don't go anywhere just yet. If you were inspired by how Maria took matters into her own hands, you won't want to miss the story appearing on your screen right now. It's about an entire town that secretly conspires to take down a corrupt factory owner who is poisoning their water. Click on that video now, and we'll see you there for another story of justice.